two main things I needed to do. One is to not eat carbs, and two is to not eat. Don't know why people make such a big deal about steroids, other than the fact that they're great. Variety may be the spice of life, but it's hard to control. When I'm on a ketogenic diet, it's not hard for me to stick to it. And you hear people say, oh, the 80-20 rule, or eat everything in moderation, and it's stupid. So what's gonna happen for you guys if you go all in? I'm gonna try to start some of these videos out with a joke. Let's see how it goes, see how my delivery is. I guess this isn't much of a joke, more of like a situation that happens to me a lot. So I explained to you guys quite a bit about nutrition, carnivore, keto, how to lose weight, how to lose body fat, how to get in better shape, and how to do this, how to do that. The very second that I try to explain any of this in my household to my daughter Quinn, she goes like this. She'll just, like, I don't know, be making herself something. She's making like avocado something or other, or making a sandwich or something, and I'll say, hey, you know, and then she'll just go. Anyway, welcome to the Single Digit Body Fat series. Just know that any of the information, whether I'm an expert or not an expert or whatever, it's not well received in my own household. So you guys aren't alone. I'm sure when you're trying to share something, you're trying to tell your wife or somebody in your household about something cool that you heard on Joe Rogan, or you heard from Huberman, or from Mark Bell, or from Thomas DeLauer, or from Mike Israetel, that the people in your house are falling asleep. Probably happens to all of us. Anyway, welcome again to the Single Digit Body Fat series. I'm Mark Smelly Bell. I am on performance enhancing drugs. I'm on steroids. Have been for a long time. Don't know why people make such a big deal about steroids, other than the fact that they're great and they work really well. But more recently, I made a post with this little tackle box type of thing that my wife bought me for Christmas, and it's like a thing that's supposed to like kind of hold your TRT, let's say. And I made a post about it, and Instagram thought it was inappropriate, and so they took it down. But I'll just say this: hey, if you're gonna do drugs, you're gonna do something with drugs, just make sure it's useful. I'll leave it there. Welcome to the Single Digit Body Fat series. Today I want to talk to you about what you need to do in 2025 to be in better shape and to be less fat. There's two main things I needed to do. One is to not eat carbs, and two is to not eat. So let's get into it. Obviously, I'm kidding around about not eating, but I'm not, because we're going to talk about fasting a little bit. I do think for some of you that would like to lose some weight, a really simple thing to do, I mentioned this previously, is to do some 24-hour or 48-hour fasts. Maybe do 2 24-hour fasts or 1 48-hour fast every single week until you get down to a desired body weight. Very simple advice, very simple to do. And even that alone, for some of you, would probably help you reduce your body weight without making too many other changes to your nutrition, other than just making sure you're getting in enough protein. 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Try to do that the best you can on a day-to-day basis. With the exception of the 48-hour fast, you don't need to worry about it for that time period, because we don't really need a gram per pound of body weight. It's a little bit of overkill to make sure that we hold on to that muscle mass. But let's talk about no carbs, and let's talk about what everyone's talking about this time of year, the carnivore diet. Carnivore, keto. Keto diet's been bastardized by people making a lot of weird frankenfoods that are keto. And now you're still on a keto diet, but you just ate something that has 36 grams of fat, has a lot of allulose, and it blows out your butthole. It just messes up your stomach and sort of messes up the whole point in following a low-carb diet. I can tell you, one of the funniest things that's ever happened when I recommended a ketogenic style diet, a war on carbs, to a friend of mine's father, Jessica Smith's father, he came to me and he said, hey, listen, man, he goes, I lost like 30 pounds. My energy's up, but he goes, I'm super disappointed about this one thing. And I was like, well, what's wrong, man? You okay? I thought he wasn't feeling well or something. He goes, I can't fart anymore. And he's like, I used to be known for that. And he's like, I have no more gas, and I have a regular schedule with my poop. And he thought I just kind of messed up his life. He was happy with being in the bathroom multiple times a day for hours on end and being very gassy. But that's a lot of times what will happen when you start to follow a ketogenic diet and you start to follow a carnivore diet, and you're actually following it with natural foods. Ketogenic diet I really like personally because it does allow for berries. It also will allow for some vegetables. And so the style of diet I do, my friend Russell Buddy was asking me recently, he's like, what do you guys even call your diet? And I say, my brother and I have just been calling it the War on Carbs. We made a pact a long time ago. We shook hands at Makuni, which is a sushi place, and we made a decision not to eat any more carbs. And obviously since that time, of course, we've eaten some carbs. But we do really prescribe to a low-carb lifestyle, and routinely, time and time again, we always come back to it. We always come back to the keto-style diet. One of the things I think it can do for a lot of you is it can help with food cravings, and it can just help get rid of all the BS that's in your life. When it comes to a ketogenic diet and trying to draw a line in the sand on not eating things that are going to kind of throw your taste buds in the wrong way, I call this flipping your taste buds inside out. We want to be really cautious of this because there are things that are hyper palatable that are still kind of keto-y, like a protein shake, for example. Like some of my protein shakes. The Total Carnivore Steak Shake tastes amazing. It has beef tallow in it, which gives it this kind of creaminess, and it has this rich, strong flavor. The chocolate's unbelievable. The mocha, the vanilla malt, they're all amazing. And the steak shake products and stuff like that, and those all fall in a category of keto. And I think those are all still okay, but it's like once we start getting into like protein bars and some other things, we end up in a really weird category because we end up with things that usually have sugar alcohols in them. And I'm not saying that you can't have any sugar alcohol, but you want to really watch out for the amount of sugar alcohol that you have because that can really hurt your stomach. Why am I mentioning all this to you? I'm mentioning all this to you because it's important to be reasonable when we're talking about a ketogenic and a carnivore style diet. I've had some relatives recently come up to me, and the relatives are, a little puffy. They could definitely lose a little bit of weight. And they've come up to me during the holidays saying like, is this diet of just meat, is this healthy? And I kind of just, there's a nice opening there to make a rude joke, but I don't want to make a rude joke because I want to encourage them. But really what I'm thinking in my head is like, anything is better than whatever it is you're currently doing. And anything is going to absolutely smoke and absolutely kill, from a health perspective, anything that you're currently doing. Because whatever you're currently doing is keeping you bloated and keeping you heavier than you want to be. Your body fat and your overall size is a huge negative factor in your risks for health. This has been shown time and time again, empirical evidence in various studies. We've seen it a million different ways, that when somebody starts to lower 10% of their body weight, 20% of their body weight, when they previously have been heavy, when they previously have been over fat, under muscled, and so on, that they make huge strides with a lot of other markers of their health. So that's something to really keep in mind. If you're significantly overweight and you have like 60 pounds to lose, your biggest health concern isn't necessarily your cholesterol. Your biggest health concern is to lose body weight, and specifically to lose body fat. How do we lose body fat? We make sure that we have enough protein each day and we don't eat carbohydrates. Those are two really simple things to do, in my opinion. And why would we go this protein and fat route? You got Israel and Lane Norton, and why is other people really preaching against that that's the way? Well, I would first off say, I don't think that those guys have tried a ketogenic diet before. And if they have, maybe they haven't done it long enough. I don't know. Maybe they have done it. And maybe they just think it's hogwash. Maybe they don't like it. I will tell you something. From a former fat guy, a guy that was 330 pounds, and someone that helps people that are hundreds of pounds overweight, I help a lot of people behind the scenes. In helping these people, when they have a ribeye and they throw some butter on it, or they have a ribeye and they have 2 eggs with it, and they have a little bit of butter on there, they are super satisfied with that meal. If I was to ask them, hey, how many times a day do you think you can eat that meal? Even the biggest guy, even the heaviest person, 300, 400, 500 pounds, I'm going to say, it would be hard for, if I'm being honest, be hard for me to do it day in and day out and eat more than 2 of those. That's a really nice way to stay on a plan, to stay on point, right? Now, we also know if they don't have any diversity in the diet, that they're gonna fall off, and that they may have a hard time. However, remember what I said earlier about flipping your taste buds inside out. So not so fast, my friends. Just because variety is the spice of life doesn't mean variety may be the spice of life, but it's hard to control, right? If we start to have other influences, too many other influences coming in our list of foods that we can eat, we're going to probably struggle. Most of the people that I know that are super successful with their diet and are very healthy, they don't have that many different foods that they eat. They eat very similar. It's not they eat the same thing every day. They're not just eating like chicken and rice and broccoli every day. But they basically have 13 to 20 different foods that they're kind of rotating around. For myself, I guess I can go through some of it right now for you. I eat steak, eat various forms of like ground beef. I eat various types of fish, usually canned fish. I eat various types of vegetables, fermented vegetables. Not much in the way of dairy anymore. I was doing a little bit of cottage cheese and stuff like that, but not so much anymore. I don't really eat much cheese in general anymore. Eggs. And we're kind of like almost already at the end of the line. Pork. And I already mentioned fish, right? So, I mean, we're already out of ideas here. We're already out of foods. But within all that, there's still a lot of creativity, and there's a lot of great foods that I can eat. And so it's not hard for me to stay on that diet. When I'm on a ketogenic diet, it's not hard for me to stick to it, because I may have a New York strip one day, I may have a ribeye another, I may have a filet another, I may have 85-15 ground beef, I may have 96 4 ground beef, I may have grass-fed, grass-finished, I may have a really fatty, type of steak, or like I mix it up even within the confines of that. And I forgot to mention, I eat chicken quite a bit too. My wife usually cooks that. Just usually cook it with some vegetables and things like that. At the moment, I'm not eating carbohydrates, so I don't eat potatoes, I don't eat rice, I don't consume any fruit, I don't consume any honey. I'm not on any of that train at the moment. But one thing I want to mention is, we have to be realistic when we're talking about diets. So remember I told you the relative that comes up to me and says, hey, I don't know if this is so safe. I appreciate the concern. I appreciate that people are looking into this and researching these things for themselves. And I think that it's really good to learn from different people. Why not watch Rich Roll's podcast, who's a longtime vegetarian, vegan, I believe, and also listen to stuff from Dr. Shawn Baker. Why not listen to both, right? Why not get some good information from both? They both have great things to say. But I think that when we're talking about carnivore or keto, most people can't really stick to the diet for really long periods of time. I did mention earlier the satisfaction of eating those fats and how protein can be very satiating. So protein's the most satiating. It can help really dampen your hunger in general. However, I don't think it solves a whole lot in terms of cravings. And I think that's where the fats come in. So you have fat and protein together. It takes a long time to digest those fats and those proteins. And they taste so damn good that they give you enough reward. There's enough going on in the reward system up here to where you don't feel like you need to cheat or do anything. However, people still tend to struggle with it because it's such a kick in the pants to go from eating the standard American diet to now getting rid of all these sugars and breads. And you hear people all the time say, I can't get rid of my chips. I can't get rid of my chips. I can't get rid of my bread. I just can't do it. I'll never be able to do it. And they try a keto diet and they're able to do it a little bit and then they cheat. They're able to do it a little bit and they cheat. My point being is that it's going to be really rare for someone to go a year or 2 years and be so strict with their keto that they're causing harm. Because you hear people say that, they're like, oh man, wouldn't it be a huge mistake to not eat carbs for like a long time? Wouldn't it be a huge mistake to only eat meat? Well, because meat is self-regulating, it's going to be very difficult to overeat the meat. So I would say the only way that meat could be bad for you is if you are able to eat so much meat that you are continually eating an amount that's making you gain weight. But most of the time, in most cases, when somebody switches to eating meat, they're going to start to lose weight. I know we did have a couple people in the comment sections that were saying, hey, I'm carnivore and I'm a little bit stuck. What should I do? I think this is where when you can play around with fasting a little bit of intermittent fasting. You also may want to play around with manipulating your protein and your fats and sort of see what that does. Because sometimes for some people, increasing the amount that they consume for a few days or usually just a few days, 3 days or so, 2-3 days, sometimes helps the metabolism readjust, in my opinion. In other cases, it's, hey, let's drop those fats down a little bit and bring the protein up. And in my opinion, what happens there is when we get rid of carbohydrates, you're going to start to burn fat. And when we get rid of carbohydrates and we start to lower dietary fats, you're going to be burning body fat. You can also do a little bit of, like I mentioned, fasting, intermittent fasting, 48-hour fast, 24-hour fast. But I find that we're in a really interesting time where we have to explain to people that don't know much about nutrition about the health benefits of eating natural foods. It's almost like we got to really defend them. And people are like, hey, I get these little things. They're so good. I get these little crunchy things. They're amazing. I get them from Costco. And you're like, no, that's not what we're talking about. You can't eat those crunchy things from Costco or from anywhere else. Those things are not real food. They're processed. They have food coloring in them. I know that JFK Jr. is or RFK Jr. is gonna go in there and kick some ass, and he's going to try to have some legislation about yellow number 5 or whatever, and all that stuff. That doesn't change anything for me because I don't eat those things anyway. And none of us should be. We shouldn't be buying it for our kids. And I know the woulds and coulds and shoulds are like a little bit hard to hear sometimes because who the F am I to tell you what you should do? But I don't think those are foods that we should eat. I don't think that those foods are... You may be able to say, hey, they were designed for us to eat because a scientist or somebody literally made them for us to eat. But I'd rather eat things that nature made us to eat. I'd rather eat the things that are going to agree with us rather than trying to have something that's forced on us from our government trying to claim that it's healthy. The government has even gone as far to do some studies on some of these foods to try to prove that they don't cause any harm. And you hear people say, oh, the 80-20 rule, or eat everything in moderation, and like all this stuff. It's stupid. It's dumb. Develop a code, develop a system, and start to live by it, and start to have really strong and high standards for yourself. See what can happen. See what can happen. See what can happen when you go on a ketogenic diet, carnivore style diet, for 5 days, 10 days, 14 days, 20 days, 30 days. Elon Musk has talked about this kind of stuff before. He's like, you know what? You put in like 8 to 10 hours a week on something. He's like, how quickly will you be a master at that thing? Well, it might take a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe longer. But what if you're working on it all the time? And what if you put everything you got into it? What's going to happen for you guys when you go in on something all the way and you stop half-assing things? The only thing I can compare some of these things to are things that I've had some success in. And where I've had some success is in powerlifting. I used to live in the gym. I even went as far as to own my own gym to ensure that I was going to be as strong as I could possibly be. I even went as far as to make the gym for free for 10 years to make sure I was as strong as I possibly could be. That was to create an energy around me, and that was to give a lot of positivity back to myself. I would give to other people, all in a selfish effort to make myself stronger, because if I knew if I gave and I taught, and I did so through some of this messaging, through YouTube, and through having people visit me from all different states and all different countries all over the world, that it would come back on me tenfold, and that I would be able to reach a lot of my hopes and dreams, and I was right. So what would happen for you if you did the same thing, if you went all in, if you just camped out there? Just set up shop. That's what I used to do. I'd go in the gym. I'd put a bench shirt over here, a bench shirt over there, and a bench shirt over there. I was like, I'm not leaving until I figure out one of these stupid bench shirts. A bench shirt is this tight-ass thing that you squeeze into, and 4 or 5 other people help you get into it. And it was a tedious thing. But you know what happened when I went to a powerlifting meet? In a powerlifting competition, the weakest person in the flight goes first. The strongest person in the flight goes last. Normally it works out, so they just change out a couple plates, because like one guy lifts 400, the next guy lifts 450 or 425. That's not what happened in my flight. When I competed at some of the biggest powerlifting meets in the world, when I was in my prime, let's just talk about that forever, make me feel good. The last person in the flight would lift 575, 600. And it would take them, they had to wait a couple minutes. Normally it was like X amount of time in between, one lifter and another lifter. There was a lengthier amount of time from the last lifter that lifted to the first lifter because of the amount of weight that they had to change. But when I went out and lifted, the amount of weight that they had to change from 600 to like me opening up with like 810 took pretty much just as long. So I had a while to wait. That was such a good feeling. But why did that happen? That happened because I was better than everybody else? Yeah. No, it didn't happen because I was better than everybody else. It happened because I cared more and because I spent more time there. TIME. That's what helped me. That's what helped me to be better than those other athletes I was competing against. And I remember it very distinctly competing at the Los Angeles Fit Expo. I walked by Charles Bailey, who I had so much admiration for. Charles Bailey squatted 1,000 pounds, and I think it was probably the first 1,000-pound squat. I don't know the complete history of California, but it may have been the first 1,000-pound squat ever done in Sacramento. It may have been the first 1,000-pound squat ever done in Sacramento. And I saw that a few years before. I ended up squatting 1,000 pounds. But man, I had a lot of admiration for that guy. That guy was so strong. In a powerlifting meet, you squat first, you bench second, and then you deadlift. I got off the platform after hitting an 810 bench press successfully. I walked by Charles Bailey, who I was competing against that day, and he was my main competition, and he just went, "Meet's over," and he shook my hand. We didn't even deadlift yet. That was like one of the coolest things that ever happened to me. So what's going to happen for you guys if you go all in? I talked with my buddy Keto Brick, Robert Sykes. You guys ever try a Keto Brick, by the way? These things are amazing. I know we talked about being a little cautious with the keto type snacks and things like that, but a Keto Brick I think is amazing. It does have 1,000 calories in it, so you might have to be careful. You might have to spread that out over a couple days, but they're fantastic. Robert and I have collaborated. We made a steak shake version of it, which is called Mark Bell's Brownie Batter. We made another one, which is like a cake pop type thing. They're just phenomenal. Anyway, Robert Sykes is my go-to. He's one of my go-to guys for keto. Thomas DeLauer, another great resource for low carb and for keto. But Robert Sykes, he's called the Keto Savage for a reason. Because the guy does natural bodybuilding, keto style. He wrote a whole entire book on it. and he's completely diced, completely shredded, and holds a lot of muscle mass on stage. Which sometimes with some of these keto people, you're like, I don't want to look like a keto guy. Because some of the keto guys don't look amazing, but I think it has to do with their inputs. I don't think some of the keto people out there, and even some of the carnivore people out there, I don't think they're really lifting like a savage. But Robert Sykes, he lifts like a savage. But when I asked Robert, I said, hey, you know, some people are saying some different stuff about keto. What are your thoughts? You know, I'm doing sprints, I'm doing all these other things. Like, should I just like brush up against keto and like be ketogenic and do a cyclical ketogenic diet? Maybe pop out of it every couple days and be a little glycolytic, get a little carbohydrate in there. He didn't say no, but what he did say was, he said, the deeper that I've gone into this diet, the better results I always get. So I want you guys to make a commitment on your diet. It doesn't even have to be any of the diets I mentioned here today. But I would love for you to try these diets because I think that these are the most effective. I think that your best bet in 2025 is going to be doing some versions of keto, some versions of carnivore, and some versions of fasting. If fasting is something that doesn't really call to you because you're like, I want to keep size, and I haven't personally found any loss in size, but I am on performance enhancing drugs, so my results are going to vary. They're going to be different than other people's. But what I would say is that I think that you could still do a lot of intermittent fasting and get a lot of great benefits of fasting. In my opinion, I think that fasting helps a lot with gut health. I think fasting helps with one of the most important things in life, and that is stillness. I think being still, being calm, I think is a virtue. I think it's a very powerful one. Getting yourself used to real hunger, I think is really powerful. Understanding that if you don't have the energy to get up and cook yourself a couple eggs, you're not actually hungry. You find yourself rifling through your pantry, and none of those are real foods. We shouldn't barely even really have a pantry. Other than maybe for, I can't even think what it would be for. Just a refrigerator, pretty much. I guess your pantry can be for your carnivore crisps, right? We can have some of those in there, maybe some beef jerky and stuff like that in there. Anyway, that's what I'm sticking to in 2025. That's what I've been sticking to at the end of this year. Weighed 212 pounds today. It's like a couple days after Christmas. It's December 27th or so. Mid-January, I should consistently be under 210, under 205 consistently in January. And then also I think a lot of improvements in my running are going to happen. That's the whole goal. The whole goal is to get down under 200 pounds. Thank you guys so much for following along. And in the comments, keep the questions coming. I really appreciate it. A lot of you are being super kind in the comment section. A lot of really good positive feedback. But what I could use from you guys is keep challenging me on the questions. You know, if you're not sure what keto is and some of these things, keep hammering me with the questions. I will shoot a video on how to test ketosis. I prick my finger and I use a device called Keto Mojo. Prick my finger. It gives you like a little reading of blood. I'll show you some of the supplemental ketones that I utilize and why I utilize them and how you can utilize them too. They're not critical though. They're not super, it's not, I like it because I like it more from a mental perspective. It kind of gives me something else to go to. Plus they're hydrating. They're attached to sodium and potassium and things like that. So it's an extra form of electrolyte. But anyway, I'm going to shut the hell up. I'm going to get the hell out of here. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.